Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I was thinking about what it is to give thanks to God and to be grateful and thankful for each other and show an attitude of gratitude in our walk with Christ. And I have two questions that come to mind. One is that do we thank God as much as we ask Him for something? Meaning, do we ask God for a lot of things and show Him little thanks? And then the second question I have is, do we give God the glory He deserves whenever we get from God what we don't deserve? And the passage that I was thinking about this morning is Luke 17:11 through 19. In this, in the ESV, it says, "On the way to Jerusalem, he was passing along between Samaria and Galilee. And as he entered a village, he was met by 10 lepers, who stood at a distance, lifted up their voices, saying, 'Jesus, Master, have mercy on us.' When he saw them, he said to them, 'Go and show yourselves to the priests.' And as they went, they were cleansed. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. And he fell on his face at Jesus' feet, giving him thanks. Now he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus answered, 'Were not 10 cleansed? Where are the 9? Was no one found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner?' And he said to him, 'Rise and go your way. Your faith has made you well.'" I think what gets me in that is Jesus saying, "Where are the 9? Weren't 10 cleansed? Only one came back to say thank you." Uh, every single one of them got an outward cure. They were cured of leprosy, the physical ailment that they had, which is a pretty terrible ailment. We have a cure for it now, but they didn't have a cure back then. I mean, things were falling off of you eventually. It was nasty. You were outcast. You couldn't be around society. You had to stay a distance, and there was a whole process before you could enter back into society. You had to be cleared by a priest. Uh, so this was a huge deal for them to be cleansed. Uh, and Jesus, by by grace and really just by his words and his spirit and his power, said, "You're cleansed." Out of the 10, only one turned around and said thank you. Now, like I said, all of them got the outward cure, but only one got an actual spiritual blessing out of that. I would say that a more fatal leprosy melted out of that man's spirit that day. Uh, in some versions, it'll say that your faith has saved you at the end of this, that they made you well in verse 19. And that's what it is that this man has a disease, and he was cured by Jesus. Uh, but because he chose to turn around and be thankful, show gratitude for, and realize that he didn't save himself, that Jesus saved him, that it was by grace. It wasn't by anything that he did by his own merits, by his own works. He turned around and chose to be grateful to Jesus, that not only was he saved physically that day, but he was saved spiritually, because he changed his heart. Uh, when I think about what is praise and worship, why do we start church services off with praise and worship? Why do we sing to God? I would venture to say that it's because we're grateful. Hopefully, it's a heart condition of gratitude, and that we express that by our words, our songs, uh, by singing to Him and giving Him thanks. Not only just giving Him thanks, but realizing who He is to us, who we are to Him, that we are His adopted children, that we are heirs of His kingdom, and that none of that is by our own works, and that we have so much to be grateful for and thankful for this God who loves us and who gives freely, not because of something that we did, but because of how much He cares for us and His grace. So that's what we're doing with praise and worship. We're choosing to set our hearts in a position of thankfulness to God, and choose to be thankful, even if we don't feel like it. Many times we get to church and we don't physically feel like, oh, I'm tired. My week's been rough. This. I don't feel emotionally. I feel emotionally drained. I have kids that are driving me nuts at home. I have a hard job. I'm tired, and we go through the motions, uh, and it's easy to do because we're in the flesh. This is a heart condition that God wants us to see here, is that we choose to be grateful. God will heal us. God will bless us, and then it's up to us what we do with that blessing. Do we turn around and be grateful for it and live out that gratitude by blessing others, by choosing to pour into others' lives and be positive and encourage others? Or do we just go along in our own selfish ways and live out in that blessing and the benefits of it, and nothing changes? Um, we say in recovery a lot that if nothing changes, nothing changes. And this is a story of change in this man's life, not only physically, uh, but his emotional, spiritual condition, and his realization of who God is to him, and who he is supposed to be towards God. Um, Again, I started with two questions, and I just want y'all to think about this for this week, and when we go through the season of Thanksgiving, that this is not just a day that we're thankful and then we move on and it's Black Friday tomorrow and we buy things. Although that is the way of the world, the way of uh, following Christ is having an attitude of gratitude, a heart condition, a heart set on thankfulness every day. So, again, do we thank God as much as we ask Him for something? And do we give God the glory He deserves whenever we get from God what we don't deserve? Love y'all.